manufacturers or lobbyists in some ways to actually keep it out of the reach of the public by making it illegal. And I've got to say, this is when and I said I'm quite anti-social justice in a lot of ways, but I am actually a believer in justice. And there's got to and I hate hypocrisy. And there's got to be a line with which is what's actually rationally right and what is wrong.
Yeah, and you see, decentralized control, which is what happened to Professor Nutt, because it was decentralized control. It was a power which is completely irrelevant to his ability to do his job, is what the European Union has been suffering from. And in fact, last week I had the privilege of meeting George Papandreou again, who's the ex-president of Greece. And he said to me that he'd given a TED talk. And I had to listen to his TED talk, and he was such a contentious speaker that there was a petition to have him removed from the speakers list. And what he effectively said was that the trouble with Europe is that there are certain principles that are being guided. They are effectively the puppets of the market. So that when they were just having a discussion in Brussels as to what to do about the problem with Greece and about whether to bail it out and so on, he was in the middle of a debate, and one of the ministers said, you've got to finish in 10 minutes. And then someone else said, yeah, you've definitely got to finish in 10 minutes because the markets in Japan open. And unless we have a solution, the markets are going to go into free fall. And so they came up with some solution which was exceptionally unwise. Some half-caste solution. Yeah. And what he says is that politicians are limited to doing a bit of local admin, and the populations are controlled by powers beyond their control somewhere in the offices of Brussels.
I think politicians have actually ruined the country, actually.
But what he said,
many of them have.
What he then went on to say was that you should make a democracy more democratic, which means involve the people. Because I liked some of his nosology. He said the origin of idiots comes from the Greek idios, which means someone who's interested only in themselves. So, but if you're not interested in politics, you're considered to be an idiot because you're interested only in yourself. But the difficulty is that, as we said before, the ancient Greeks said you couldn't apply democracy in a city larger than one where you could hear your voice being shouted from one end to the other. And it is impossible to have real democracies anymore. And furthermore, the secret of America is that each state has individual control with its own laws, which is why cannabis is legal in some states and illegal in others. And they have their own identities, but then there's the overall US Constitution, whereas at the moment, the Eurozone is controlled by France and Germany, and they're inflicting untold pain and damage to all the other countries. Well, not all the other countries, but some of the weaker countries. And did you know that Finland and Italy have started talks about separating and producing their own Eurozone, which comes very, very soon after an idea I came up with, which is all the countries who are punished.
You take credit for that one.
I take credit for that. But Greece, Italy, Poland, Gibraltar, Spain, all of these countries, why not join together and start forming a bloc themselves?
Well, I think I think I came up with this idea. I actually said, I think it was early at the beginning of last year, actually. I said there's going to be almost like a European two-tier system, where you're going to actually have the big economies in one, and then you're going to actually have the less economies in the other, and it's going to be done on this two-tier basis. And I saw when UK were going to be coming out, they could potentially form alliances with other countries, and they did. I mean, look, it happened during the Second World War. It was the Allied forces who actually fought against the was it the tripartite or something like that? I can't remember how it was done. But it was the Allied forces, and the thing is, you're forming alliances with these other countries, and in some ways that actually seemed to have worked pretty well. As soon as you actually got Europe involved, it became so bureaucratic. And the thing is, look, I hear John Major still talking about, we should actually have a referendum, and he was, wasn't he responsible for Black Monday or something when we entered into the European Monetary Exchange?
Of course, having another referendum would be anti-democratic.
Mr George Soros, who made £1 billion in one day, I think it was back then.
Yep. having another referendum would be anti-democratic.
Sorry?
Because having another referendum would be anti-democratic. Because the democratic process has happened.
It would, but you know what? Things. I agree to a degree, but then again, if the decision is to, I've been thinking long and hard about this one actually, because when we made the decision to come out in effect 2 years ago, which is what it's been, all right, the market landscape changes in that 2 years. Now, if we were going to come out of Europe 2 years ago, then we come out of Europe, virtually instantaneously. And we work out what we're going to do. Let's face it, business deals have been done in days.
But you can't come out instantaneously because Europe wasn't formed instantaneously.
The fact that it's taken 2 years and there's no negotiation, there could be a no Brexit deal. It would have just been easy to come out with a no Brexit deal right at the beginning. If you're going to come out, you're going to come out. If you're going to get divorced, you're going to get divorced. If you're going to actually, accuse someone of sexual harassment, then you accuse someone of sexual harassment at the time. But the thing is, now it's moved on 2 years, 4 years. The market landscape's changed. I've got to say, there's different considerations to consider, because we are moving faster. Life is moving faster now than any other time in our history. Much faster, and the rate of acceleration is uncontrollable with technology and things like this. So, World War II happened overnight. I know there was build-up towards it. World War I was the shooting of Archduke Ferdinand. Is it Archduke Ferdinand? Yeah, Archduke Ferdinand. And then all of a sudden, 2 years later, oh well, do you know what? We did a referendum 2 years ago. We're going to come out now. The landscape has changed, and you've got to take those things into consideration.
What's changed? Nothing's changed. The real reasons are still there.
Hasn't changed?
Nope.
All right, so 18-year-olds who actually voted are now 20.
Irrelevant. There
are people
the referendum happened then.
Yeah, I know, but the thing is, you don't think anything's changed?
No, the process has to start.
You don't think that some of the right-wing and far right-wing people who have been elected into governments in other countries like Austria, how Angela Merkel has lost her power, how or most of her power, how Italy have also got a right wing, how Brazil have gone far right wing, how what else has happened? What else has happened? France is in turmoil with what Macron is doing. Do you not think that is all having an impact on the rest of Europe? Donald Trump getting in. Donald Trump getting into power. Do you not think he's actually had a huge impact on trade with Europe? All those things have actually had a huge impact, and even though they may not be strictly noticeable now, there will be some. It's like economics. It's like what you do 5 years ago is what's going to happen now.
But the real reason for leaving hasn't changed, and the key thing is that. And I think the wisest thing.
What was the main reason for leaving?
Mainly, it was because people wanted sovereignty to control their borders.
It was about immigration.
Immigration was the main one.
Yeah, okay.
And they
so that was the main. That was the main reason why most people voted. But if you actually look at what people like Poland, Spain, Italy are doing, they're not even letting boats come into their ports anymore. All right. So that part of the landscape has already changed. Yeah. Even Angela Merkel has come out and said, finally, that multiculturalism has failed. The multiculturalism failed. So all those things have altered the decision-making process. Now, it just so happens that Europe weren't flexible at that point in time. However, had immigration, if we'd been assured of having some level of control over our immigration, and that was put on the table right now, I'll tell you a thing. There would be an overwhelming factor that in if there was another referendum in making those decisions.
Well, you see, the immigration was a symptom, but it was also two things. It was being controlled beyond their control, being controlled by non-elected bureaucrats. So Jean-Paul Juncker is a non-elected bureaucrat, and as you know, last podcast I cast aspersions as to his mental health, or at least his suitability, personality for his job, with the evidence for it. So therefore, the problem is that people need their own identity, and the disaster with Europe is that they've been trying to impose not even a European identity. They've just been trying to steal everyone's identity. And the reason why the States works is because each state has its own identity with an overarching US identity with a constitution. And that hasn't been done here. If everyone had been told, we treasure you as Europeans, and there's a European identity, you're English and you're European, you're Italian, you're European. They didn't do that. Instead, they say you've got to do what Brussels says.
But a lot of this is to do with guilt of what you could say white privilege for for all the conquests and conquering that they actually did over the years, slavery and things like that. Now, that is another whole topic of conversation, and there's almost like they're taking responsibility now for what people did many years ago, even though the climate at that time, so when we talk about changing climate and what's happened in 2 years to what happened hundreds of years ago, is actually the world was ruled by conquest. You had the Ottoman Empire, you had the Barbary coast, you had the Barbary pirates who enslaved the Europeans and things like this. I think the Persians were looking to enslave the Greeks and the Spartans and things like this.
Slavery has always been an essential part of economies.
Yeah, so it's happened. But the thing is, and actually, it's probably something I should probably bring up briefly, although it'll probably be another conversation. And people talk about slavery all those many years ago, and if they're so passionate about it, why aren't they doing anything about it now? Because there's about 21 million people involved in slavery right now. It's just under the different guise of human trafficking. Now, if you were so concerned about what happened back then, why aren't they actively doing a role about it to actually eradicate it right now, when they can do something about it, or are they all talk? Anyway, that's where I'm going to leave it.
So the European issue, the other thing to bear in mind, is that the reason why Germany and France don't want the UK to leave is because they're depending on the UK's banks. Because effectively, the European Central Bank is not just bust; it's bust many times over, and they are desperate. I mean, one of the wisest things I heard about Brexit recently was Varoufakis, who just said, look, take the deal that Theresa May's done, because you can't expect to leave after it took years to get in. And he said the trick is to make the current bureaucrats redundant, because they're all going to go in February or March when you have the next set of elections. So take the deal, and then you negotiate the finer points later on with the next lot. And that seems to make a lot more sense.
Well, thank you very much for that. I think we're going to leave it there, and what we'll do is we will speak to you next week, hopefully with another interesting topic. Thank you very much for listening. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.